before we move on, I want to then say the following, and correct me if I'm wrong. Atrocities have occurred on both sides. I would argue throughout history. I would argue that most people don't think Israel has completely clean hands and is completely innocent. I would suggest that I myself am critical of Netanyahu. I think he is a very controversial character. And, look, again, you could, Israel did this to us and they took this and we did that to them. And it goes back and forth. But when you start to say, when you think you're saying, I want, the killing to stop in Gaza, or you think that you're saying, I would like to see a two-state solution, or I would like to see a world where, Palestine, the Dave Smith of it all, Palestinians can vote, they have a seaport, they have an airport, and we could get into, why they don't, and Israel doesn't feel safe, and there have been, suicide bombers and all of that. Nevertheless, when you chant globalize the Intifada, when you chant death to Zionism, when you chant from the river to the sea, what that actually means is none of what you think it does, and eradicate Jews is actually what it means. Am I right in assuming that?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, again, I want to just be clear that many people shouting these phrases, they're only doing it because it's like the current cause.
I know.
But you could easily give them a sign that says, net zero carbon or whatever the sign will be. No, seriously, it's like it's all interchangeable.
But
it's all just
to play devil's advocate, we've all been bombarded with images of children under rubble dying in Gaza. And you're just like, oh my God, okay, how does this stop? And I have to tell you, when I got in this conversation with Dave Smith, and obviously I was very horrified and disgusted and angry about October 7th, and he's like, well, where is your outrage about the children dying under the rubble? And I was like, I'm outraged. But I don't hate Palestinians and I don't hate Jews. I just want the dying to stop. That, I think, is the difference, is I am seeing this give rise to new forms of anti-Semitism. I am seeing, people feeling more safe to express their anti-Semitism because of this. And that's what is deeply alarming to me. And I'm wondering if that's what's alarming to you. And and then beyond that, my next question is, I'm seeing anti-Semitism on both the right and the left now.
They're speaking in unison. Yes. So I think one of the things that's been so shocking, I should say for the listener who has no idea who I am, that
I'll tell them in the beginning if they don't know, but
that I wrote my book, How to Fight Anti-Semitism, in 2019. This is an issue I've been paying very close attention to for a very long time. And yet even someone like me that's very attuned to this issue has been absolutely shocked by the sort of political and spiritual tragedy that began on October 7th and especially on October 8th. And by that, I mean, you would think that the largest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust would be enough to wake people up to the aims of a group like Hamas. Instead, it somehow did the opposite. It somehow made people believe and like, as you're saying, Jillian, like catalyzed a kind of latent hatred of the Jewish people and of Israel.
This podcast is sponsored by Active Skin Repair, a skin health company helping people heal with natural, non-toxic, medical-grade ingredients. Active Skin Repair utilizes a molecule called hypochlorous acid. And when you apply the skin molecule, it works by mimicking the natural immune response to cleanse, soothe irritation, reduce inflammation, and support healing. Active Skin Repair can be used to treat a wide range of skin issues, including cuts, scrapes, burns, sunburns, diaper rashes, and other types of skin damage. This is invaluable for moms, maybe you've noticed. It is also safe and non-toxic, making it suitable for use on all skin types, all parts of the body, and it even helps with rosacea, eczema, and acne-prone skin. With over 500,000 happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews, and ingredients so safe and so clean, they can be used by the youngest member of the family up to the oldest. So now you have one simple solution for all of your family's skin health needs. Just visit ActiveSkinRepair.com to learn more about Active Skin Repair and to get 20% off your order. Just use the code Jillian.
And there's this incredible quote that I pulled ahead of this conversation. We had this wonderful piece called Free Palestine Terrorism about what happened in Colorado and happened to DC. And I just want to read this one thing because I think it's brilliant. There's a book called Terror and Liberalism by this intellectual Paul Berman. And he was writing in 2003 about the Intifada, about the suicide bombing campaign that was carried out against innocent people across Israel, in synagogues, at hotels, in pizza restaurants. I remember one bombing that took place because I will never forget that they killed a father and his daughter on the day of her wedding, the day she was supposed to get married, in a cafe in Jerusalem. And here's what he said. The popularity of the Palestinian cause did not collapse in the wake of these bombings. It increased. Yes. There was an idea that each new act of murder and suicide testified to how oppressive were the Israelis. Palestinian terror in this view was the measure of Israeli guilt.
Yes, I've seen. I'm sorry, Barry. I've seen it. That is the argument. Well, what do you expect them to do? They're not allowed to have a military. They're not allowed to vote. You've blockaded everything. So how are they supposed to do this? And I've listened to the arguments, but
it's almost like each bad thing that happened on that day, each rape, each murder, each kidnapping, somehow seemed like it was the measure of Israel's guilt. Yes. The amount of evil that they withstood, rather than simply, this is an evil terrorist group that's murdering people, innocent people, many of whom lived in communities explicitly committed to peace and coexistence.
I've seen that exact argument. I've tried to watch so much of the other side in order to at least push back a little and try to present like a fair case. You know, if Dave Smith was here or Bassem Youssef was here, they would tell you, well, you know, Israel killed 100,000 people here, and here, and they're not allowed to have an army. And listen, okay, I said bad stuff is happening on both sides, but instead of, oh my God, October 7th is one of the most gruesome, gory, disgusting, and awful events that has ever occurred in my lifetime. It's, see how much they've suffered? Look what they had to do.
Instead, what has happened is that beginning on October 8th, with people across the West celebrating the slaughter of Jews, it's led to, over the past 600 or so days, a new reality where the stigmas that we used to take for granted, the taboos that existed against open hatred of Jews, has been more and more normalized on the far right and the far left. And often it's coming under the very, 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 very thin veneer of just being against Zionists. But if you're just against Zionists, well, how do you explain someone that goes to a Jewish museum and murders people, young people there, hunting them down? What is that? Is it just because he's against Zionism? I mean, at some point that begins to fall apart. And I think what has happened is there has been a permission structure created by all of the people who, under the guise of anti-Zionism, have demonized Jews, such that Jews walking around visibly identified as Jews or going into Jewish spaces, like my daughter at her preschool, or going to the JCC for a swim lesson, or anytime I give a speech in public, I think most people would be shocked to learn that all of those spaces have armed guards at all times, because that is now the reality of being a Jew in American life. How has that become acceptable? And yet here we are.
I hear it though, Barry, I hear it like this. Like someone will say, you'll be at a restaurant. And whenever I'm in Los Angeles, lots of Jewish people. And some woman will be ordering and she'll, be high maintenance with the waitress, which, by the way, I always am, whether you consider me a Jew or not. And I'll hear the table over there go, pushy Jew. And I'm thinking to myself, like, are you effing kidding me? I grew up in Los Angeles. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. Everyone was Jewish. I didn't even know anti-Semitism was a thing. I did not know it. Now it's like pushy Jew. And you feel fine saying that. Or I'm starting to notice it in things like, well, Kanye did have a point. And I'm like, what point is that? Just tell me. I'm like, what's the point? Well, the Jews are like a little mafia. I'm like, holy shit, how? I'm not anti-Semitic or anything, but I mean, they are. They're like a little mafia. They control everything. And I'm hearing that stuff. I've never heard that. Never. I'm 51, grew up in California. I have now lived on both coasts. I even have a place in the friggin' middle of the country. I've never heard this before. In the last couple of years, you would be ashamed to say such things. And it's become, and I have made this case and people have disagreed with me, but I feel very strongly that Kamala Harris did not choose Josh Shapiro because he is a Jew. As the temp search arrives, I get that familiar urge to refresh my closet. But I am done wasting money on trendy pieces that I wear once, which is why I'm obsessed with Quince. The clothes are timeless, elevated, built to last, no insane markup. I'm talking about 100% European linen shorts and dresses that start at just $30. Italian leather platform sandals, luxe swimwear that looks straight off a runway but costs half of what you'd expect. Quince partners directly with top-tier factories, cutting out the middleman so you get designer quality at a price that actually makes sense. And they only work with ethical, responsible manufacturers who care about people and the planet. Personally, I stocked up on the linen tees and the tanks, and believe it or not, a killer summer dress. Occasionally, I do wear dresses. And honestly, it finally feels like my wardrobe matches my standards. Upgrade your wardrobe at quince.com. Luxury should never mean compromise. Team, give your summer closet an upgrade with Quince. Go to quince.com/Jillian for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/Jillian to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Jillian.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And make sure to let me know what guests you want to see on in the future.